I want to welcome you guys for signing up for this workshop, how to self-publish a book that actually makes money. So we have an agenda for today. Very simple. What we're going to do is we're going to have a few items to discuss, and then at the end, we're going to have some Q&A available for everybody. So the workshop's agenda is this one. First, we're going to talk about why this topic, and of course, the author IQ test that most of you took. We're going to talk about the 4 common mistakes that self-published authors make when going out on their own. We're going to talk about the 4x3 self-pub method, which is something I came up with and I experimented and I used to launch my book, and it was successful. So I want to share it with you guys. I'm going to talk about that, the case study, and then we're going to talk about the next steps. So are you guys ready? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Yeah, awesome. Okay. And there's Diana, my wife. She's going to be also helping me through the presentation, sharing some links and stuff, and coordinating everything. Okay, let's get started, guys. So first of all, why this topic? So there's a couple of reasons, and first is that, you know, guys, breaking into traditional publishing is really hard for non-celebrities like most of us. Maybe there's 1 or 2 celebrities here, but for the rest of us, it's not that easy, because the traditional publishers, they just require a lot from first-time authors, even to just get through the door. And especially for people who are not planning to do their living out of their books, but they want to advance their careers, their businesses through their books, it's not really practical to give all of the control of your book to a third person, a third party, like the publisher. So you want to have creative control, the timing, the distribution in your hands to be able to do that. So that's the first reason why we talk about self-publishing. And the second reason why I bring this topic is that because most self-published authors, they go in blindly and they end up with dismal results. Like, for instance, some reports say that the average self-published book sells only about 250 copies over its lifetime. Other sources say that 98% of self-published authors only sell about 80 copies of their book. So just imagine all the work you can put into a book, all the sweat, blood, tears, whatever, energy, time, only to sell 80 copies. And that's why I want to talk about this topic, because they're doing things wrong, right? So I had asked you guys to take the author IQ test. So I want to see how many of you guys took the test, because most of you did. Yeah. So it measures 5 areas that you need to master to really be effective and successful as a writer. And they're mindset, ideation, system, publishing, and marketing. And if you took the test, I wanna see something. So just write down in the chat, what was your overall score? So there's the overall score. What was your overall score? Write it down in the chat. 60%, 66. She was 80. Wow, Emily, good for you. 59. Nice, 62. You guys are good. Yeah, and if you see here on the slide, the average score is 66, right? Oh no, Robert, less than 20. Oh my God. Well, we're gonna fix that. Okay, what is the test, says Milena? So Diana is going to add a link to the test. So the invitation had the link to the test, but we're going to add it here as well. So if you see here, the average score is 66, but which one's the lowest category there? It's publishing, right? It's 44%. So what that tells me is that most people, they may be good at, you know, having an assistant to write. They may have the right mindset as a writer, but apparently they don't know much about publishing. So this is going to take us to the 4 common mistakes. And what are those 4 common mistakes? Okay. So one, people try to do everything themselves. So the book quality is amateurish, like the ones here in the slide. So if you see here, there's it says create attention grabbing book covers in Microsoft Word. So that's an actual Kindle book on Amazon. And the interesting thing is that this author is saying create great covers, but that cover is not professional at all. It looks amateurish. So just let me give you a hint here. Never use Microsoft Word to create your cover or the layout of your book. There's professional software for that. So don't do that, right? And look at it. So that's one mistake, right? People try to do everything themselves. They published another mistake, publishing everything in just one format, either ebook, PDF, or Kindle. And when you do that, I mean, yes, it's good, but it's not the only one. And you reduce the reach of your book and how people will find you. If you only do Kindle, that's going to limit how people are going to find you. The third mistake is that not using the right distribution channels. So yes, people go to Amazon, and Amazon is great, it's the largest, but also there's more competition in Amazon than anywhere else, right? So you get lost in a sea of books. And there's other channels that you can take advantage of to be able to sell your book and make money. And the fourth one is that people don't have a marketing plan, or they don't have a book ecosystem. We're going to talk about book ecosystem later. And without marketing, nobody except people in your household will know your book exists, right? So let me introduce you guys to the 4x3 self-publishing method to create a high quality book and actually sell lots of copies. And it's called 4x3 because there are 4 areas you need to master, and each one has 3 elements, right? So let's get started with the first one. So the first one, so you need to get married, yeah, in WED. I'm just making some acronyms here so you can remember. So to avoid the first mistake, which is doing everything yourself, you must assemble a 3-person team. A writer, that's you, an editor, and a designer. And that's WED, W-E-D, WED. So you will remember it. And then even if you're an English major and you have like perfect grammar in English, or the language you're writing your book on, you must hire an editor with experience in your book genre. Why? Because a second pair of eyes always improve your book. So never skip it. Even if you think you have perfect language skills, never skip the editor. You need someone else with experience in your book genre to do this. Now, there are 4 levels of editing that a manuscript goes through, but we don't have time today to go through all of them. But when you took the Author IQ test, you received a PDF with the results. And there I explain what are the 4 levels of editing, so you get familiar with them. So make sure you look at those. Now, the designer, you need a designer. Why? Because you don't want your cover to look like the ones in the previous slide, right? So please work with a professional designer who knows about book covers. Now, if you are a good designer, you can do it yourself and get feedback from others. Actually, because I have design experience, I do my own covers, but I always submit them for critique to professionals. And I ask several designers for tips on how to improve them. And there's a +1 here. If you see down below on the slide, below designer, it says narrator. And this will be for your audiobook. And this can be expensive, but the experience from the reader's perspective is better when they listen to a professional voice, right? And you may ask, okay, is an audiobook necessary? And that's a good question. So what do you guys think? Tell me in the chat. Do you think an audiobook is necessary? Should you do an audiobook or not? And he says, yes, yes, Robert, yes, not. Absolutely today, definitely, yeah. Right, yes. Most books by audio, cool. I'm not sure, yeah. Listening to audiobooks and podcasts, yeah, Walter, yes. Yeah, actually, this is a good segue. So the second one is ape. So you need an ape You got to get yourself an ape. And that's for the 3-book formats, audio, print, and ebook. And you won't forget this one, right? And not everybody likes ebooks. Some people never buy hard copies anymore. They only do ebooks. And other people, they just prefer to listen to audiobooks. In fact, I was looking at some data, and the global audiobook market has been growing like crazy in the last few years. I think it's, they estimate that by 2026, it's going to be $9.3 billion. Last year was $4.8 billion. So it's huge, right? So the important thing is, you know, to know what people like. But I think you can ask, and this is what I did. So the key is to know what people prefer, your audience prefers. So I did a couple of surveys on LinkedIn, and I asked people about if they liked audiobooks, where would they buy the ebooks and all that. So you can see here that 69% of people actually listen to audiobooks. That's from my audience, right? 69% like audiobooks. So that's a huge part of my audience. And most people get their ebooks from Amazon. And if you see on the right hand, the comments, someone said, like Kristen said, like, I read the real thing. That means the paperback or the hardcover, or listen via Audible. So no ebooks there, right? But if you see Catherine at the bottom, she says, I just downloaded my 1,000th book on Kindle. I love ebooks, right? So it's all over the place. So if you want to reach, if you really want to make money with your book and be successful, don't just publish in one format. You need to go ape and do them all. Cool? All right. So let's move on. Okay, the other element is 3 distribution platforms. So yes, we talked about Amazon, and that's very, very important because you can publish both Kindle and paperback or on print on demand on Amazon. To publish on Amazon is free. They don't charge you for publishing a book, but they get a cut of the royalties, right? And the print cost. So, but you usually can get between 35 and 70% of the royalties. While with a traditional publisher, you get between 5 and 15% of the royalties. But on Amazon, you get up to 70% of the royalties when you publish with them. Second, I know you know about Amazon, but second, many of you maybe don't know about Ingram Spark. So Ingram Spark, you use it to distribute your book, print book, or even your ebook if you want, to bookstores and retailers across the world. They're one of the largest distributors in the world. So there's a setup fee for each title, but it's cheap, right? It's not expensive. And I don't have to go into the details, but if you guys are interested, you can just Google how to publish on Ingram Spark. You're going to find tons of information. And the third platform there, it's Findaway Voices. So this is to distribute your book and even find a narrator for your book. There's another option for audiobooks called ACX, but that's just for Audible. And if you just want to go Audible and be exclusive, you can do that as well. But Findaway Voices will put your book into Audible and many other places where people listen to audiobooks. For example, I use a script. I don't know how many you guys know a script to read and listen to audiobooks. And with Findaway Voices, I get my and Draft to Digital, which is the +1 down there, I get my stuff through script. So Draft to Digital is another one, the +1 down there, because that will get your ebook into a lot of retailers like Apple Books, Kovo, Google Books, Barnes and Noble. So you can get it through all of those places where people buy books through these platforms. So I call this AI favorites, AI fave, just Amazon, Ingram, and Findaway Voices. So there you go. And now this is where the rubber meets the road, right? To sell books, you need 3 marketing tactics. And let's think about Lex Luthor, the bad guy from Superman. Yeah, he was rich, he was cunning. So we're going to be cunning and we're gonna get rich. Just kidding. But just think about Lex Luthor, right? And Lex means launch, ecosystem, and multiply. So you need a plan to launch your book 3 or 4 months in advance to create momentum and touch potential readers several times before launch day. You also need an ecosystem, because the worst mistake an author can make is to sell only books. Listen to that. The worst mistake you can do as an author is to sell only books. Your book must be part of an ecosystem of products, like online courses, coaching, and similar things that you can charge higher prices for. And you can see that many books today, when you go back to the end of the book, they're going to say, you want to learn more, go to my website, buy this course, send it to my newsletter, get into this mastermind group. So there's a lot of stuff going on because there's an ecosystem, and that's what smart authors know what to do. And finally, multiply. And this is because marketing should multiply sales, meaning it's an ongoing thing where you commit to do at least one thing every day to promote your book. And I first heard about this idea from Jack Canfield. How many of you guys heard about Jack Canfield? So Jack Canfield, many years ago, he did Chicken Soup for the Soul book series, which is a bestseller, sold millions of books. And he said, I read once that Jack Canfield would say that every single day he would do 3 things to promote his books. 3 things, even if it's something little. And over time, those little things would just multiply, and it became a bestseller. So it's just an ongoing thing. It's not just publish it and forget about it. You have to do stuff every single day to sell your book. Okay. So I have a couple of articles. So Diana is going to put the link to 2 articles I wrote with more detail. One about book launches, 10 steps to have a successful book launch, and one about creating a book ecosystem and what's the difference between an author platform and a book ecosystem. So we're going to share that in the chat. But right now I'm going to show you the case study. So I'm going to tell you my story, how I did that. So we can know how it works. We can see how it worked with my case study. Okay. So many of you may know, many others don't know, but I just published a book on March 4th was the launch day, the Solo Fall Year. And it was successful, right? I came up with the idea of the book back in October 2021. I came up with the idea of the book. So I prepared everything to write it. And I gave myself, and I said, I'm going to publish this in 4 months, self-publish it. And I wrote the first draft in 32 days. So by December the 2nd, I finished my first draft. I stepped away for a couple of weeks. And then during the Christmas break, came back and revised it, rewrote, added some stuff, and finished the manuscript. Then in January, or the end of December, I went to readsy.com. So readsy.com is a great website. It's a marketplace for publishing professionals. So you need an editor, you need a book designer, you need a book marketer, whatever. You can go to readsy.com, open an account, and you can set up a project. You can search, they're all vetted, so they're all professionals. And you can have editors bid on your project, and you just select from there. So I went there, I selected one of the editors, and she did the copywriting during January of 2022. So I want to be very transparent. I paid $522, including Reedsy's fee for the book. My book was 38,000 words, and the fee depends on how many words is your book, how long is it. So if it's longer, you pay more for that. So, and I was really happy with it, right? So that's one tip. Second, the cover. I designed the cover myself. I found an illustration I liked in FreePick, which was free. Then I paid a designer in Fiverr $20 to make the bulb red. And the rest I did myself in Photoshop. And then for the audiobook, it costs about $1,800 for a professional to record the audiobook version of the Sonotone Leader with all the technical specifications required by Audible and our audiobook retailers, because you have to take into account that there's a lot of specific details that you need for an audiobook. So that's in terms of, the team that I assembled, right? Now, in terms of formats and distribution, what I did is I started with the ebook on Amazon Kindle and draft to digital to make it available in Barnes & Noble, Apple Books, and other retailers. The paperback edition was also submitted to Amazon directly and to Ingram's Park for wider distribution. And for the audiobook, I'm going to tell you a little bit. I tried to do it myself. So I said, I can't do this, right? So I bought Microsoft, I bought a microphone. I tried to make my studio. I tested it, and I was sweating like, this is really hard. Like, I'm making all these mistakes. I can. So, it was just taking too much time. It was too hard. And I decided it wasn't going to be the best experience for my listeners. So I want to find out voices, submitted the project. I casted several narrators. So several narrators read the sample of the book, and then I chose the best one that I liked. And that's how I started working with the amazing Kevin Clay, who's the narrator for my audiobook. My audiobook is already available on Apple Books and Script. It's coming out on Audible in the next few weeks, but I love the result. And it's much easier than it was doing it myself. But if you have a good voice, you're an expert, you have a studio, you can do it yourself, there's no problem with that. Okay, so now one of my goals was to make it into one of Amazon's bestseller lists. And as you can see on the image here on the left, I made it to the Amazon Hot New Releases for the business technology innovation category. So the Sonotone Leader was there #1. I was really excited when I saw that being there, because all my work paid off, right? And so this is what I did. So first, I made the book available for pre-order on Kindle for a month before the launch date. So I will get some traction on Amazon and prove that there was interest. If you go to Amazon, you'll see that there's recommendations at the bottom of the book where it says, people who bought this also bought, right? Have you seen that? Or customers also interested in this book, right? So by having it on pre-order, people who bought it in pre-order would also buy other books. And then my book would show up in those other books as something that people also bought. So that's one of the reasons I did that. And I actually sell about more than 34 copies before the launch. During that time, I created my street team. I contacted about 30 people to be early readers, provide feedback, write pre-release reviews, and support for launch day. And some of you guys are here. So I was in constant contact with you, and even gave you some gifts as a way to say thank you. So thank you guys. Some of you are here from my street team. And it was very important because those reviews that they wrote went directly to my website. I shared them in social media, in graphics I did. And I also asked them to post the reviews on Amazon on launch day, right? Because people are going to look at reviews. So by having people pre-order, read it beforehand, you can ask them, okay, just write a review on launch day. And when on launch day, people are going to come and they're going to see reviews already in there. And that's really important because that's social proof, that's credibility. So for 2 months, so I released in March, January and February, I was releasing short teasers of the book, like photos of the cover, some excerpts, some interviews that I did with people, and other material. You know, just like Hollywood does with movie trailers, that's what you do creating buzz, just stuff a little bit here. and just craft content that allow people to see and hear about the book many times during those 2 months. So by the time that the book came out, they were eager to buy. If you know about sales, they say that you need to have 7 to 8 touches before someone buys something. So this is really important. And those touches are during this LinkedIn, social media, and also building in public. Like I ask people, hey, vote on your favorite cover design and stuff like that. And also, it's in the bottom, I also did free content. So put your best content out there from the book. So I published a free chapter on my website. I published another free chapter on medium.com. And this was very controversial because it just had a very provocative title that's called Content Marketing is Dying. That's chapter 2 in the book. Actually went viral on Medium and got a lot of people from there going to my website, taking the scorecard, buying the book. So it was one of the greatest things. And that the scorecard. So I created the thought leadership scorecard. Some of you guys have seen it. And that's another thing I put all the book content into a test, a scorecard where people can get a glimpse of what's in the book and how the book can help them. So those are things that during the early buzz just created this content, just created all this excitement about the book that made it successful later. Now, I told you guys about the book ecosystem, and this is something I came up with. Really proud about that. And there are 4 categories in a book ecosystem, okay? So the first one is lead generation assets. So this is free content that you repurpose from your book so people can find you and be exposed to your ideas. And the reason they're called lead generation assets is because you will be directing people somewhere. It's not just free content for the sake of information. You want your readers to take action. And that action is to give you their contact info or move them to the next product in the book ecosystem. So I did this on LinkedIn and Medium, just giving free content, stuff about the book that then people would sign up to know more, right? The second one is low cost products. So this can be where you can invite people to buy your book and other low risk products like digital courses, templates related to the framework you use in your book. The book is actually here in this category because it's something people are going to buy. It's not a free gift. And also scorecards. And I use my scorecard, my book, and an on-demand course I have about how to write a book in 90 days as a low-cost product. So this is part of the ecosystem, right? I'm not just selling a book. I have an online course. I have other products. So that's the second one. The third one is the main offering, okay? And my main offering is Soul Thought Leadership Coaching. And this is high value, high ticket product that you offer to a limited number of people. And for me, I offer 2 levels of coaching, the DIY, do it yourself, and the done with you. So think, how can you use your book to create a framework for your main offering that would actually walk people through that? And you can read more of that in the article we shared. And finally, there's the upsells. So these are also known as products for clients. And these are things you sell to people who have already gone through your main offering. This can be additional services or upgrades, like a membership for continuous access, a private community, a mastermind, or more. In my case, I offer publishing and marketing services for books. This is more like a done for you type of thing. But this is where so you don't actually make most of your money on the book. That's just like the entry point. You're going to make most of your money in the ecosystem through the main offer, through the products, through the upsells. That's where the real revenue comes from. So what have been the results for me so far? So as I say, it's less than a month since I published this. the book. And as I mentioned, most self-published books only sell 80 copies in their lifetime. I'm way past that in less than a month. And I'm already getting royalties from Amazon, Ingram Spark, and even for the chapter I published on Medium, right? Because on Medium it's a paid platform, you get royalties, right? So just for one article, I'm getting money. So I'm happy to share this experience with you guys. And what I want to do now is take questions from you. So there's two things. So first would be, we still have about 30 minutes, 25 minutes for questions. And also I want to give you guys the chance to book a free 15-minute call to chat with me about your book project. The idea is not to sell you anything, just I want to do this to help, because my mission is to help aspiring authors publish their books and just, bring their great ideas into the world. So if you have questions, Diana's going to drop the calendar link into the chat. If you guys want to book me for a 15-minute call so we can chat about your book project or any questions you may have. But two things. I want to know what you guys think about the presentation. Was it clear? Do you guys enjoy it? And also ask any questions you may have.
I got a question, Diego.
Yeah.
So the parts that I kind of struggle with is kind of finding the right framework to get things down on paper. So what was your experience to kind of hone down, to kind of know what you wanted to talk to? Because it seems writing and launching, there's a big gap in between, like getting all that stuff out of your head into a place where it's going to be interesting to other people. What was your experience around that?
Right. So here I talked about publishing, right? So I assume you already have a book, right? But if you don't have a book, that's a whole more process that actually we can go through and we can talk about. But mainly, I came up with a method to write a book, and really simple. And I can share some articles with you on how I do that. If you go into diegopineda.ca, I have some articles there. But basically, if you're working with clients right now, you should have a framework. How do you help your clients? Mm-hmm. What do you do with them? What are the steps that you follow with them, right? So you have to document that system, that framework, and put it in a book format. So you explain how people go from pain to price, from their problem to the solution, how you take them there. Don't give out everything, give most of what you got, give the information, but then that's the starting point, your framework. So once you identify your framework, you put it into a book format, then all the ecosystem is going to work because everything's based on that framework. So actually during the coaching program I offer, that's step one, let's create and refine your framework. And what I did with my book was that, okay, I'm going to create, so I notice a problem. So the problem that I notice is that most solopreneurs are playing by the rules of big companies, and that doesn't work. They need to do something different. So I started doing research, interviewing people, interviewing successful solopreneurs. And from that, I came up with a 7-step framework to go from solopreneur to go to expert. And that's how I wrote the book. And that's the basis for my whole ecosystem. So I don't know if that makes it clear.
No, it's super helpful. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Any other questions?
I have a question. Hey, Diego.
Yeah.
So, I'm not like as experienced as most guys. I'm 21 years old. So if I want to write a book on a topic that I'm not a authority in, would you say that I should work with experts, or would that prolong the process of writing? I mean, how to go about research when you don't actually have authority on the topic, or maybe you shouldn't write on that topic or something? Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, great question. So there are two things here. If you want to create an ebook, an ecosystem, I think you choose first, be an expert in the topic. You want to gain authority, but that shouldn't stop you from writing a book. Like, there are two ways to write a book. You can be the expert talking about your experience, or you can be the journalist, the reporter talking about other people's experience. So even for this one, right? So I realized there were 7 steps, and I had experience in some of them, but some of others I didn't know. So I interviewed a lot of experts, and I'm reporting on what those experts say, right? And that's a way to do it. So, and that's a very good way to learn, and also to find a mentor, right? So just see what you're passionate about, what you want to talk about, and start interviewing people. And when you say, hey, I'm writing a book about such and such topic, and I want to interview you because I know my readers will love to hear your story, people are going to say yes. Some people won't answer your emails or your phone calls, but I got some really cool people here for my book, and I didn't know if they were going to say yes because they didn't know me, but it worked. So that's one way to go.
So I have a question, Diego. When you're citing other references within the book, so other books, other authors, other references, quotes, how do you go about doing that? Do you just kind of like, bibliography style footnotes, or do you have to request permission from to use somebody else's content? So in other words,
right,
curating content from other resources to add content and to fill the book with valuable.
right. So there's, in the publishing world, there's some ways to do that. So usually when you have references, so you can have footnotes or endnotes. Endnotes is better. So if you quote from a book, there's the fair use clause in copyright law that as long as it's not more than 1,000 words or something like that, I don't know the exact number, and you actually quote the book and have the complete reference, is okay. Now, if there's longer, like you just want to have like a few pages of the book, then you would need written permission. So I think Jeanette said it's often up to 300 words of a longer work like book, or 60 words in article. Okay, so there are things about that. But there's the fair use that you can actually say, this is who I'm quoting, right? And when you interview someone, they will know, you will ask them, this is for a book, I'm going to quote you, and they're going to give you permission. So just always say, always mention the source and give the full citation.
Hi, Diego, I had a question.
Yes, Benny.
So, when you're deciding on what topic you have to write, what amount of research or should you go ahead to kind of validate if there's a market for that topic, if there's a readership for that topic? How do you kind of validate your topic?
Okay, so the way to validate your topic is you start writing about it on social media, and you see the response. Write for it for about 6 months. Ask people, see if there's interest. Try different things. Not too many things at the same time, but one of the authors who's a best-selling author, David Muirman Scott, says that he looks for signals in the universe of new things, new ideas. Then he starts writing on social media and he's blogged for 6 months. And if there's enough interest, he says, okay, there's going to be a book here. So you're just going to ask people, and find people are responding to it. Do they like it? Are they ignoring it? And that's how you know. So yeah, this is the amazing thing about, social media today. Decades ago, authors didn't have that feedback, and they would just have to guess, or they would just write about what they wanted. So just start writing about it.
Just a quick follow-up to that, a long blog versus a book, because content gets outdated so much. And if you write about, digital or video, something that I want to write about, how do you know if you should start like do a long blog about it or do a book about it? Because it may just get outdated very quickly,
Yeah,
things are
so
changing.
there are different reasons to write a book, and one of the things is that with a book you gain credibility and authority in a topic, right? So if you're a published author on a topic, it's like a business card on steroids, that people will just, you gain credibility, you'll get podcast invitations, you get invitations to collaborate because you have a book, you're a published author. And a blog doesn't do that, right? Because everybody can write a blog. So that's one thing. We talked about the framework, right? So it's not the same thing to explain or put your framework into a blog post. I mean, I can do that. And the articles I share with you have the framework, but it's just a small thing. It's just a summary, right? But here is in more detail. And you want to give value. And a book is something that people will come and look at over and over again. And just the part of being outdated, just make sure your book is about principles and not just tactics.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, any other questions, comments, experiences? What do you guys think?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
When you're building this ecosystem, right? What is the right moment to start writing an ebook? Is it when you had your 100% on the test we just done, or?
So I would say come up with your framework, be very clear about your framework, and start working on the book, right? Putting things together. So one way to do this, if I told you, you guys can start writing about it, like blog posts and social media posts. So make a table of topics, a table of contents that you want for your framework, and then start writing blog posts about those things, and then see the response, and then convert those blog posts into book chapters, right? So it's going to be easy. You're doing two things at once, right? So you create a blog post, let's say 2,000 word blog post, then you get chunks out of that to post on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or whatever. And then you measure the response. You get some feedback. You come back and you refine the post, and then you use that as the basis for the book chapter. And there's a method I teach. It's called the CPE method, which is for every chapter, you just need three things: a concept, proof, and an example. So your idea, proof, and the proof is statistics or client results or case studies or some industry benchmarks, and then an example, a story that shows that principle or that concept in action. And that's gonna just make it much better. If you go to LinkedIn, to my profile today, I had a post this morning, and there's a link in the comments for an article I wrote, and I mentioned the CPE method in there if you want to look at it. So just start working on it. Just start publishing stuff, and then you're gonna build your book as you go along.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Do you have any suggestions when it comes to blogging and editing the blog before it's published, for content, proofreading, grammar, and that sort of thing? Because it's so easy to publish a blog and then have lots of mistakes in it.
Yeah, I mean, today there are many tools like Grammarly and stuff like that you can use to double check. I would just write it and read it a couple of times. If I don't know, give it to your wife, give it to someone who would read it and have a second pair of eyes. And also one tip is like, there's two ways to blog, right? So you can blog on your own website, or you can do what we call social blogging, which is what I'm doing right now. So I do have a few blogs on my website, but I'm blogging on Medium, because there's a lot of people already on Medium, and Medium is going to amplify my blog post, while I would have to bring every single reader to my website, which is harder. And as I show you, like that article from Medium, like it has more than 15,000 views already. That I wouldn't have gotten that on my own website. So there's different, Medium is not the only one, there's other platforms, but be on social media every day, be on LinkedIn every day, and publish every week your blog on one of those platforms.
Is that outlined or detailed in your course, the ecosystem for
Yes.
publishing?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's part of the work we do. We show you the different strategies and the different platforms that you can use to do that. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, Diego. I've been off video because I've got a coworker here, but
Hey there.
that timeline you just laid out is wild. I remember when you first posted the cover looking for feedback back in like December or January or whatever it was. So the idea that you came up with that, you decided to write that in October is really wild to me. That's fantastic. How long leading up to deciding to write the book had you been working on basically those 7 ideas that make up the different chapters in the book before you, was that framework already in existence at the time you decided to do it, or did you cook all that up since October?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Like I had some ideas, and because I mean, it partly is part of my experience as a business consultant and B2B marketer. So a lot of my experience from the previous years went into there, and my story goes into there, right? But it was part of, okay, this is the idea, this is the need that I see for solopreneurs. And I went into research mode, just like reading a lot, interviewing people, and then it all started coming together. Like, I don't know if it's the way my mind works, but I started just putting stuff together. And I could see, okay, I have this table of contents, these are the 7 steps. And I started saying, okay, I know about this. I know what I want to say about this. I don't know much about this. Who do I have to find to tell me more about it, right? So for instance, I did a search, how to become a thought leader. And I read a bunch of articles. So what I do is I research and I read until I don't find any more new information. Like everything I'm finding is just the same thing. So I know I've researched enough, and I make notes. And I say, okay, all these articles say that to become a thought leader, and all these books I read say that to become a thought leader, you need to do this, and this. Okay, I'm not gonna repeat that. I'm gonna find patterns. I'm gonna find trends in all the research I did, and see, okay, which ones make more sense for me in my experience that I can relate to, that I can talk to, that I think works also for my audience. And then that's how I came up with the 7 steps, right? I could have done 15 steps or 3 steps or 10 steps, but 7, it's a nice number. Awesome. Okay, guys, so I don't know if there's any other questions or comments. Someone says Hemingway also helps. Yes, Hemingway is good. Hemingway app. Thank you for sharing your process. Learn so much. That's great. The ecosystem. Yeah, I mean, just take advantage of this, and also no commitment. If you want to talk to me on your book project, just book a meeting. and we can go through it.
So, Diego,
No
one last
commitments there.
question. Hi. One last
Yeah.
question. So how long, I mean, obviously it depends on how fast you write and how much knowledge you already have. But from start to end, is there a bucket process or is it an always going on process? How much time should one mentally kind of compartmentalize and say, okay, this is much time I need to write my book in my life. So do I give it a year? Do I give it 6 months? How does it work? Or does it work like that at all?
I would say no more than 90 days. I mean, I created the method and you can look at it on my website. You only need an hour a day. Once you have all the pre-planning that I teach, you only need an hour a day or 90 minutes a day for 3 months, weekends off, and you'll complete your manuscript. It's not that hard. Unless you're writing, I don't know, the next Lord of the Rings or a fantasy saga, that's going to take more. That's going to take longer. But if you have a framework and you know how to put it down and just organize it and interview the right people and do the research, you can have it. And you have chunks of time, 90 days, 90 minutes per day. You'll do it in 3 months or less.
All right. Thank you.